evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. With the devastating news of 215 children being found in a mass grave near the former residential school in Kamloops, British Columbia, APTN's Tina House has just returned from there and has this about a story of a survivor who shared what it was like to be forced to attend that school. A warning, this may be difficult for some viewers.
The Kamloops Indian Residential School was first established in 1890, and thousands of kids from across BC were sent here. For years, former students told horrific stories about this residential school. Stories of sexual and physical abuse from nuns, priests, and workers, and even stories about how kids just completely disappeared. Now, with the 215 kids that were discovered in a mass unmarked grave, the memorial outside the school is growing by the minute. Rose Miller is almost 80 years old now, and she's a former student here along with many of her other family members.
My dad, Henry, my brother Bobby, my Uncle John, my Uncle Louis, my cousins and aunts, and myself right here.
It's been just about 73 years since Rose Miller first walked through those doors as a 7-year-old little girl from Canham Lake, BC in 1949. She says she, along with her 2 brothers, were forcibly removed from their home, and she says it was just the beginning of a total nightmare.
It was awful because the food that they fed us for breakfast was lumpy, uncooked mush with sour milk lots of times. The food truck used to come in at 5 in the morning. We could smell all that bread, and we couldn't have bread half the time, and we were so hungry. They'd give us boxes of apples from the apple orchard down here, and a lot of times they're all rotten, and we're so hungry we got to scrape out the rotten part of the apple and eat it.
At 8 years old, Rose says she'd had enough and ran away along the riverbank as far as she could.
I stole some paper in an envelope so I could mail a letter to my dad to come and get us. And then we got caught, so they took all of us girls who used to play down here by the river here, and they took everybody into the dorm and they made us strip down to our panties. There was 3 of us. Well, we called it bloomers, that's all they gave us. So then they had a great big strap. It must have been about a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. And I just remember the nun pulling up her sleeves like this and jumping and hitting us on the back about 10 times with that strap. And then we had to get our hair cut really short and real short up here.
It was shortly after that brutal beating, Rose and her siblings were picked up by their father to never return after enduring 3 years of abuse. APTN got exclusive access inside the former Kamloops Indian Residential School, and Rose joined us on a tour of her formal residential school.
We had to clean everything. Yeah, some people were punished and they would have to scrub these stairs with a toothbrush.
And as she continued to walk the hallways, memories just came flooding back like it happened yesterday as she entered the chapel.
This is the heebie-jeebie place, the evil place. This is where some of the boys went upstairs to make room for them in here. There used to be pews all along here. Girls' side, this boys' side. You'd have a aisle all along here. And up there was where the priest said the Mass. We were told if we didn't pray, we're going to go burn in hell, or the Romans are going to come and rape us and burn our eyes out and burn our hands and our feet and burn off our fingernails. So we pray all the harder.
In essence, this really was hell.
Yeah.
Here in this place,
yeah.
This was hell.
Yeah. So it was pretty horrid when you think about how the religion controlled us.
Miller isn't surprised by the discovery of the 215 children found buried on the property. She believes there is likely more. Out of respect to the community and the young victims, APTN will not be showing the site where they were found until more ceremonial work is completed.
Grief
sadness and sorrow now grip this entire community as they come to terms with the fact that 215 children were buried here on this former Indian residential school property. Leaders from across the country are demanding a full criminal investigation, as well as more resources to search every residential school across Canada. Tina House, APTN National News, to Kamloops.
Thank you, Tina. The National Indian Residential School Crisis Line is available for survivors who might need help or support. That number is 1-866-925-4419. Well, in the wake of that horrific discovery in Kamloops, messages of distress and outrage continue to pour in. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he promised action while an emotional address came from NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. Jamie Pashagumskam reports.
Flags on Parliament Hill and around Ottawa have been flying at half-mast since Sunday, out of respect for the 215 Indigenous children whose remains were found near the former Kamloops Indian Residential School in BC. At Monday's press conference, Prime Minister Trudeau promised concrete actions for the families and survivors.
As a dad, I can't imagine what it would feel like to have my kids taken away from me. And as Prime Minister, I am appalled by the shameful policy that stole Indigenous children from their communities. Our thoughts are with Te Kamloops, Te Swipmuk First Nation, and with all Indigenous communities across Canada.
Since the news and over the weekend, pairs of shoes and other items were placed around the eternal flame on Parliament Hill in memory of the children who never returned home from residential schools. Meanwhile, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh called for an emergency debate to be held in the House of Commons.
They need to be working with Indigenous communities in partnership to investigate and fully fund the investigation of other sites, because the sad reality is this isn't the last site. There's many others that have been found, and there will be more that will be found. And the Indigenous community deserves to have the justice of making sure that every site like this is uncovered.
At the press conference earlier this morning, Singh was asked if he had a message for the families of the 215 children. Visibly moved, the party leader appeared to be fighting back tears and was speechless for a long period of time. Finally, he managed to utter a promise.
I'm sorry. We're going to fight for justice for you.
Jamie Pashagumskam, APTN National News, Ottawa.
In response to the discovery at the Kamloops Residential School, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations and the Government of Saskatchewan issued a joint call today for the federal government to, quote, immediately commence research on undocumented deaths and burials in residential schools in Saskatchewan, including a radar ground search at residential school sites. They say that they want 6 former residential schools in that province to be searched. Well, meanwhile, memorials honoring the lives of the 215 children took place across the country over the weekend. They started in Vancouver Friday evening, where people placed shoes outside the steps of the Vancouver Art Gallery, and quickly spread to cities and communities and towns throughout Canada. Brittany Hobson has more.
Rows upon rows of shoes line these stairs, each one representing the lives of the 215 children who never returned home from the Kamloops Indian Residential School. Over the weekend, large-scale memorials began popping up outside institutions such as government buildings and churches. Following news late last week of the mass gravesite unearthed, artist Tamara Bell decided to set up a memorial on the steps of the Vancouver Art Gallery.
I really believe that by creating the visual, that we give people context and a place to come and grieve.
And shortly after, communities across the country followed suit. In Winnipeg, hundreds of shoes sit outside the Manitoba Legislative Building. The memorial originally started at the Udana Circle at the Forks, before it was moved to where a sacred fire will burn for 4 days. Alea McIver organized the fire and has been staying at the Legislative Building to help maintain it.
We come here in ceremony to honor them, to show them that we care, to show them that they are not alone, because The stories that I'm hearing also too is we would have been at home crying alone. We would have been hurting alone. Thank you. Thank you for putting this on for us, and it's very emotional to hear that from elderly people that really suffered all impacts of violence.
In Mohawk Territory, shoes, toys, and flowers make up a memorial outside the St. Francis Xavier Mission Catholic Church in Ganawage. Jessica Erstreich helped organize the memorial. She says she chose the location to help remind the Catholic Church of their role in the atrocities children faced.
The Catholic Church is one large entity, so no matter where they are in the country or the world, they are still, every single site is responsible for what happened to those 215 children.
For some survivors like Gagayusta Deer, the discovery of the burial site doesn't come as a surprise.
It was all over the country. It hit me right inside of me because I knew, I saw graveyard like that, you know, and it's like, oh my God, the people.
Similar memorials were set up outside churches in Saskatoon and Whitehorse. In the nation's capital, flags were lowered to half-mast, while passerbys visit a memorial outside Parliament Hill to remember the lives of First Nations children taken too soon. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News.
We want to hear what you think. Where do we go from here? What needs to happen next? Share your thoughts with us. You can send your emails to news@aptn.ca. You can leave a comment on aptnnews.ca. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and now TikTok. Follow APTN News and join the conversation and see our latest stories. We need to take a quick break, but when we come back, a child welfare agency in Quebec is under fire for keeping a child isolated in a windowless basement for 2 weeks. And again, if you need that crisis line number, 1-866-925-4419. Welcome back. A child welfare agency in Montreal is under fire after an Indigenous teen was forced to self-isolate in a windowless basement for several days. Except the agency insists they were just following COVID-19 protocol. Lindsay Richardson explains.
Picture this. You're a student. You think you're heading to school for the day, but because of a misunderstanding, you're ordered into total isolation for 14 days.
Here he is, not knowing any better. Always been in the care of the DPJ for his whole life, and here he is thinking that this is just the way things are, and this is just normal to him. It's not normal, it's sickening.
The student in question is an Indigenous minor in the care of Montreal Youth Protection Services. We can't name him or the man speaking, his teacher.
My student needed to get his school supplies because the school had been closed down on the Tuesday as a result of a bridge collapse here in Montreal. He was sent to school anyway from the group home. They didn't know or didn't get the news that he was that the school was closed.
Batshaw is the child welfare agency overseeing the file. They felt the youth might have been exposed to COVID during the detour, so they ordered him into segregation, but never performed a COVID test.
The room, however, has been described to me and confirmed by the people who work there as a windowless cement room in a basement. My student had a chair and a bed, and that was all. They had removed his cell phone and means of communication other than schoolwork.
Batshaw's alleged treatment of Indigenous youth has been criticized before. 2 weeks ago, a report from the Quebec Human Rights Commission found the regional health authority overseeing Batshaw chronically violates Indigenous kids' right to education and the full development of their human and cultural potential. In a statement to APTN, however, they assured isolation does not mean leaving young people to themselves. The presence of an educator is assured, in addition to offering them several sources of entertainment. The teacher says the reality was a lot less personal.
They referred to an algorithm, and I don't know if you can hear a little bit the emotion in my voice. They referred to an algorithm that they use to determine how to treat a student. And my reaction was, in my mind, I thought, you are reducing this young person to a number and using a mathematical formula to determine an outcome for him. And they felt comfortable reducing him to a number.
And they keep telling us that they follow a very strict algorithm. Sounds very robotic and mathematical.
Amanda Moniz works for the Montreal Indigenous Community Network. They jumped on board quickly to call out what they feel is a human rights violation. But after a meeting with health board officials, they say their concerns were dismissed.
They were so resistant. It was incredible. It became very clear that they were there to just let us talk and express concerns, and just so that they could appease us, that they could check a box off a list and say that, oh, we heard them. But really nothing was done.
By the time the groups convened late last week, the youth in question had allegedly spent 3 or 4 days locked up. His teacher says a formal complaint is in the works.
You do not, in 2021, reduce a young Indigenous person to a number and say that the algorithm told you to do it. That is a complete, utter failure in the system, and I would suggest a moral failure too.
The health board promised to release the youth if a COVID test came back negative. We sent a follow-up email to confirm whether that test ever happened. They did not return our request for comment before deadline. Lindsay Richardson, APTN National News, Montreal.
It's time for another commercial break, but when we come back, Edmonton pulls together with a support rally for Oilers defenseman Ethan Bear after racist attacks against the Cree player. Stay with us.
So today, we bring a message of hope, reconciliation, a spirit of kindness and love, unconditional love.
Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. This photo was taken by APTN's Michelle Carlin-Zigit's of shoes laid out at the steps of the Manitoba Legislature in honor of those children found buried at the former Kamloops residential school. While memorials are being set up across the country to remember the lost lives, you could send your photos to share at aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather. Off to the east coast, we got sunshine and 13 degrees for St. John's, 18 with some cloud in Halifax. The Grand River, sunshine and 13, sunny in Nain, 4 degrees. Lots of sun in southern Quebec. Sept-Îles, 12 degrees, 18 in Montreal. 19 in Ottawa. Toronto, 17 and sunny. Sun continues up north to Big Trout Lake, 20 degrees, 22 and sunny for Thunder Bay. Cloudy in northern Manitoba, 14 and a chance of showers for Churchill. Only sunshine in the south, Winnipeg, 25 degrees. 20 and a chance of showers for Swift Current, Yorkton and Regina, both cloudy and 19. Buffalo Narrows, cloud and 16 degrees. Sunshine for Uranium City, 13 expected. Showers in 28 degrees expected for High Level, 29 and sunny for Peace River. Sun in the south, 27 for Edmonton, 19 for Lethbridge. 25 and sunshine for Kamloops, 25 and sunny for Campbell River. Smithers, showers in 20 degrees, 25 and sun for Fort Nelson. Showers in 18 for Dawson City, sunshine and 18 for Whitehorse. Wrigley, 21 and a chance of showers. 3 and snow for Fort McPherson. Polytech, 1 with a mix of sun and cloud. 1 and snow for Baker Lake, New Yacht, sunshine, 0 degrees. Kenite, flurries, 1 degree, Igloolik -2, and clear skies. Hundreds of supporters gathered in Edmonton on the weekend to show support for Edmonton Oilers defenseman Ethan Bear. The Cree player was subjected to racist comments after the team was eliminated from the NHL playoffs. APTN's Chris Stewart was at the rally.
Because I know Ethan Bear and the rest of the world will hear this. Let's go Oilers! Let's go Oilers! Let's go!
Behind Rogers Place on a warm May Saturday, supporters of Ethan Bear denounced racism. Bear is from the Ochapowace First Nation in Saskatchewan, and his chief, Margaret Bear, some council, and members drove over 8 hours to pledge their support to their popular hockey star and to fight against racism.
That affects us all, right across Canada, right across our communities, First Nations, non-First Nations, the world. So today, we bring a message of hope, reconciliation, a spirit of kindness and love, unconditional love.
Organized by superfan Magoo and comedian Don Burnstick, Burnstick didn't hold back his feelings on how people of color have been and still are treated.
15 years ago, Edmonton Oilers had 5 black players, 5. I sat row 2 behind the net, and the stuff that came out of the mouth of those fans when one of those players turned the puck over was incredible. You know, and the thing is, people sat and listened to it. When you sit and listen to this stuff, when you sat and you didn't comment on those attacks to Ethan, you are complicit. I'm talking to you. You're watching TV at home, you are complicit. You know, and enough is enough. Am I right, you guys?
Frog Lake First Nation Chief Greg Desjardins said the pain from racism needs to stop.
We've been silent for too long. We've been hurt. You know, our people endured hardship 150 plus years. When is it going to stop?
Those gathered were treated with music, dance, and entertainment. And a quick visit from Ethan Bear, who drove by in his truck and shook hands with fans. Those who attended said enough is enough.
Personally, myself, I have been a victim of racism in playing sports, so that's why I come today to show my support, and I think it's very important.
We need to get it right at some point where we all get along and we share this land and we take care of one another. We love one another.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Well, we are all out of time for your news to kick off the week. Tune in tomorrow as we continue to follow what happens now after the discovery at Kamloops Residential School. And Métis Saskatchewan had a leadership vote on the weekend with incumbent President Glenn McCallum beating former Métis National Council President Clem Chartier. Lots to unpack with all that. We will do that tomorrow as well. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Thanks for joining us. And again, if you need support as a result of the stories coming out of Kamloops, there is a crisis line. Again, that number, 1-866-925-4419. Take care of yourself.